Activity.
Activity. A thing that you do for interest or pleasure. For example, leisure/outdoor/recreational activities.
Afraid.
Afraid. Feeling fear, frightened because you think that you might be hurt or suffer. For example, don't be afraid. Aggression. Feelings of anger and hate that may result in threatening or violent behavior. For example, the research shows that computer games may cause aggression.
Ambassador. An official who lives in a foreign country is the senior representative there of their own country. For example, the British ambassador to Italy/in Rome.
Anger.
Anger. The strong feeling that you have when something has happened that you think is bad and unfair. For example, she had to find a way to express her pent-up anger.
Angry.
Angry. Having strong feelings about something that you dislike very much, or about an unfair situation. For example, her behavior really made me angry. Annoyed. Slightly angry. For example, annoyed with somebody or about something.
Anxiety. The state of feeling nervous or worried that something bad is going to happen. For example, acute/intense/deep anxiety.
Anxious. Feeling worried or nervous. For example, the bus was late and Sue began to get anxious.
Appreciation. Pleasure that you have when you recognize and enjoy the good qualities of something. For example, she shows little appreciation of good music.
Assumption.
Assumption. A belief or feeling that something is true, or that something will happen, although there is no proof. For example, an underlying, implicit assumption.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Having beauty, giving pleasure to the senses or to the mind. For example, a beautiful woman/girl.
Beauty.
Beauty. The quality of giving pleasure to the senses or to the mind. For example, beauty of something.
Bias. A strong feeling in favor of or against one group of people, or one side in an argument, often not based on fair judgment. For example, accusations of political bias in news programs equals that reports are unfair and show favor to one political party.
Calm. Not excited, nervous or upset. For example, it is important to keep calm in an emergency.
Cheer. A shout of joy, support or praise. For example, a great cheer went up from the crowd.
Communicate.
Communicate. To share or exchange information, news, ideas, feelings, etc. For example, we only communicate by email.
Compromise. An agreement made between two people or groups in which each side gives up some of the things they want so that both sides are happy at the end. For example, after lengthy talks the two sides finally reached a compromise. Concern. A feeling of worry, especially one that is shared by many people. For example, concern about something/somebody. Confident. Feeling sure about your own ability to do things and be successful. For example, she was in a relaxed.
Content. Happy and satisfied with what you have. For example, he seemed more content.
Cry. A loud sound without words that expresses a strong feeling. For example, cry of something.
Delight. A feeling of great pleasure. For example, a feeling of sheer/pure delight. Delight. A feeling of great pleasure. For example, a feeling of sheer/pure delight.
Depressed.
Depressed. Very sad and without hope. For example, you mustn't let yourself get depressed. Desperate. Feeling or showing that you have little hope and are ready to do anything without worrying about danger to yourself or others. For example, the prisoners grew increasingly desperate. Disappointment. The feeling of being sad because something has not happened or been as good, successful, etc. as you expected or hoped. For example, book early for the show to avoid disappointment.
Distress.
Distress. A feeling of great worry or unhappiness, great mental pain. For example, the newspaper article caused the actor considerable distress.
Doubt. A feeling of being uncertain about something or not believing something. For example, a feeling of doubt and uncertainty.
Dream.
Dream. A series of images, events, and feelings that happen in your mind while you are asleep. For example, I had a really weird dream last night.
Dream.
Dream. A series of images, events, and feelings that happen in your mind while you are asleep. For example, I had a really weird dream last night.
Either.
Either. One or the other of two, it does not matter which. For example, you can park on either side of the street.
Embarrassment. Shy, uncomfortable or guilty feelings, a feeling of being embarrassed. For example, I nearly died of embarrassment when he said that.
Embassy. A group of officials led by an ambassador who represent their government in a foreign country. For example, embassy officials. Emotion. A strong feeling such as love, fear or anger, the part of a person's character that consists of feelings. For example, to show or express your emotions.
Emotional. Connected with people's feelings, equals with the emotions. For example, emotional problems stress.
Emotionally. In a way that is connected with people's feelings, equals with the emotions. For example, emotionally disturbed children.
Enjoy. To get pleasure from something. For example, enjoy something. Enjoyable. Giving pleasure. For example, an enjoyable weekend or experience.
Entertaining.
Entertaining. That you enjoy watching, listening to, doing or experiencing. For example, an entertaining speech/evening.
Enthusiasm. A strong feeling of excitement and interest in something and a desire to become involved in it. For example, her voice was full of enthusiasm. Evoke. To bring a feeling, a memory, or an image into your mind. For example, the music evoked memories of her youth.
Excited.
Excited. Feeling or showing happiness and enthusiasm. For example, staff got excited when they heard they were getting a bonus.
Extreme. A feeling, situation, way of behaving, etc. that is as different as possible from another or is opposite to it. For example, Extremes of love and hate. Fear. The bad feeling that you have when you are in danger, or when a particular thing frightens you. For example, her eyes showed no fear.
Feel. The feeling you get when you touch something or are touched. For example, you can tell it's silk by the feel. Feel. The feeling you get when you touch something or are touched. For example, you can tell it's silk by the feel.
Feeling.
Feeling. Something that you feel through the mind or through the senses. For example, a feeling of something.
Fierce. Angry and aggressive in a way that is frightening. For example, a fierce dog.
Frightened.
Frightened. Afraid, feeling fear. For example, a frightened child.
Frustration. The feeling of being frustrated. For example, in frustration.
Fun. That you enjoy. For example, she's really fun to be with. Fun. That you enjoy. For example, she's really fun to be with.
Furious. Very angry. For example, their incompetence made me furious. Glad. Pleased, happy. For example, I passed the test. I'm so glad.
Grief. A very sad feeling, especially when somebody dies. For example, she was overcome with grief when her husband died.
Guilt.
Guilt. The unhappy feelings caused by knowing or thinking that you have done something wrong. For example, she had feelings of guilt about leaving her children and going to work.
Guilty.
Guilty. Feeling ashamed because you have done something that you know is wrong or have not done something that you should have done. For example, Matt and Chrissy both looked equally guilty.
Happily.
Happily. In a cheerful way, with feelings of pleasure. For example, children playing happily on the beach.
Happiness.
Happiness. The state of feeling or showing pleasure. For example, to find true happiness.